welcome to Black Knowledge Matters. Just as it's been going since January of 2026, we have been on a roll at WOSE, and tonight is no different. Tonight we have Sister Marianna, who is going to bless us with the presentation today. Sister Marianna was born in Detroit, Michigan, just like your brother here, but raised in California. She has a strong background in journalism, community activism, mental health, and leadership. Her passion is teaching and engaging the youth and the community. And let me say, for those of you who have not been privileged to participate in one of Sister Marianna's presentations, you are in for a real treat. For she possesses a very rare skill set, in that as a result of her lessons, her wisdom, one tends to walk away with being inspired, edified, but yet with a sense of personal responsibility and accountability to the community. Tonight, our presentation will be covering public health and social wellness abroad. And I hand it to our sister Marianna to please educate and nourish us.
Peace, family. You have such a radio broadcast voice. When you gonna get your radio show going? That's a good radio voice. Give a thumbs up if you would listen to him do a quiet storm at night, like a conscious quiet storm. I would listen to your conscious quiet storm. It was so good. You got a good voice. So peace,
Love
family. Brother Bill waves his hand. Yes, 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 we would. So I'm grateful to be here. Grateful for the Most High to allow me to speak. I ask for the elders, whoever identifies as the elders, may I have your permission to continue? Ashe. So today we're going to be speaking about social wellness and public health abroad with the emphasis on one of my most recent trips. I traveled to many places, and I'm blessed to have support systems and sponsors in my education who make sure that I can practice and also, but mainly learn in other environments so that I can bring some of those values, those principles from rich cultures and traditions to back to us in America as well. And when I say America, I mean us Africans in America. So my recent trip was to Cuba. And originally, this presentation was going to solely be about my experience there. But with all of the new things that are happening that you may be seeing in the news and in the political environment, I felt like I needed to broaden it a little bit to give a little bit more history on some of the culture and the politics of Cuba's existence, and then bring it into how that connects to the work that I was able to do there. So the organization or the individual who I went with was Catherine Hall. I'm pretty sure some of you know her in terms of her work with the Birthing Project. And a lot of her work is rooted in maternal health. So for many years, she has created opportunities for students abroad to be able to go to Cuba and get free education there so that they can come back and contribute to the maternal health practices as doctors here in America and other places. And so I was asked to go and be a part of the experience twofold. The first fold, which I'll get to eventually, is about my service as a social wellness practitioner. She really wants to make sure that people understand having a healthy baby is not just about your experience in the medical environment. It's the holistic experience that you have. And for many years, Cuba is one of the most safest places for a Black child to be born, based on the theory of the holistic experience and what needs to be involved for a child to have a healthy experience, which starts with the mother. So what I'm going to do first is I'm going to share my screen in a quick little video. We'll go into a couple of slides on the history of Cuba, both politically and culturally, and then I'll start talking about my studies and my program there. The program is very rigorous in the sense that for 2 weeks, every morning, I had to be up by 8, and most times we didn't get back until 5 o'clock from our studies, from some of the volunteer work that we did, from the lectures we had, a lot. So it was not necessarily a vacation. We were there under a research license. And I think a lot of people like, oh, how was it? They're thinking about the 60s and, you know, a lot of the things that went on in some of the movies. And it's like, no, I went there as a student. I did have some joy there. But as I begin to tell you a little bit more about the experience, I'll tell you some of the depth of what I experienced there. So I'm going to share my screen and desktop and share. And so now you guys are on the side. Give me a thumbs up if you can see my screen right now. Thumbs up, shake that thing if you're wild. All right, cool. So with that being said, here is the first clip of a video just to get this party started. Here we go.
Sincero, dijo Martí, de donde crece la palma. Y antes de morir me quiero cantar mis versos del alma.
Another day of learning. What did you learn today?
Cultivo una rosa blanca.
Again, where's the camera? The integrating.
Para el amigo sincero.
So that was a really fun overview of the program that I was in. The program was a lot because I was taking in not only my studies, but I was also taking in the condition of the environment. So although the people are beautiful and although the culture is beautiful and I had opportunities to see some amazing art, it was difficult once I really understood the impact of the current blockade that Cuba has, which restricts them from getting some of the main and basic human resources that they need. So in order to lead up to that, I want to educate you, if you don't already know, about some of the history and the culture, which will bring us up to what is happening now in Cuba. So Cuba is very racially diverse in the sense that it's a multicultural society with a population mainly of Spanish and African origins. A lot of the times when you see Cubans, they can be fair skin like me and blueberry chocolate dark as well because of the mixing and the blending of cultural heritage that is there. So when you break it down, if you see somebody that might identify as white, understand no matter if they see themselves as white, mixed, or black Afro-Cuban, they all consider themselves Cuban. So one of the first lessons that I learned, right, is the power of nationality. And in that, even though there are blends of different shades and hues, they very much so honor their African roots for the most part. Now, when you go to other countries, there's always going to be brainwashed folks somewhere, right? There's always going to be people that deny their Africanness. But in general, in terms of my connectivity there and the experiences that I have, it was very clear that number one, we're Cuban, and number two, our origins are Africa. And that was very strong in the sense when I went to different museums and places like that, they were not negating the presence of their origins of many people being from African descent there. So a lot of the times when you see somebody that's mostly fair skinned, if they're Cuban, they might be descendants directly from the Spanish colonizers, right? Who were, and then later some of the immigrants from Europe. And those are usually in the Western Union, in the Western regions. When you're looking at more of like what they would call mixed or mulatto, those are individuals who were combined with that Spanish and African heritage. There's also some Native American ancestry that you can find as well. Now, when you're dealing with people that are apparently have strong Black and Afro-Cuban features, these are customarily descendants of people who were enslaved at one time from various African regions. Not all of us went the transatlantic slave trade and end up in America. Many people ended up in Cuba and all over the place, right? So when we're looking at those various African regions, that include the Congo, Yoruba, and other populations that live in the eastern provinces. So for me, I felt like I saw brown and Black people everywhere, but we're just mixed up everywhere. But in concentration, that's what you would see. So Eastern Cuba tends to have like a higher population of Afro-Cuban people compared to the rest of the island. But overall, it's a cultural mix of Spanish and African, and then indigenous, and also some Asian influences. And so that is some basic information in terms of the makeup of the people. Now, when we're looking at more of the historical aspect, it's really important to understand that Cuban people have always resisted colonization, right? Like a lot of the times you'll hear these narratives. I think I heard Crazy Kanye one day say something like, why didn't you just fight back? But when we look at conditions and powers that be, it's mental enslavement oftentimes. But Cuban people have a strong history of resistance, right? So when we're looking at forced migration, and we're looking at the history of Cuba starting in the 1500s, the colonization of those indigenous people, Spain heavily relied on enslaved Africans, and one of their biggest exports was the sugar industry. That sugar cane. That's what they were interested in. That's what a big part of their colonization was rooted in. There were other things, but it was that sugar. And we already know how sugar affects us. But anyway, that's another story, right? But that sugar. When you look at over all of the enslaved people, a lot of them came from Yoruba, Conga, and Dahomey regions. So when you see how the transition of those African spirituality practices transition over, they usually merge with the beliefs of your colonizer. So a lot of the times when you see the Yoruba culture, but then you look at Ifa in the motherland, you'll see those correlations. A lot of the times people will get confused though, because there'll be a deity that looks Catholic, but you see the root is still very deeply connected to Yoruba tradition. So in terms of the resistance, there was a lot of enslaved Africans known as Maroons, and you'll hear that in Haiti, you'll hear that in Jamaica, right? Those were just warrior-spirited people. They were very powerful in the sense that they were about maintaining their communities when they escaped. And a lot of the times they would go up into the mountains. So when you see that passion in, Cuban people, a lot of the time that's that deep warrior spirit. And they have always been about resistance and not allowing colonizers to take their culture, and really holding on and preserving African culture, even though it started to get blended in with the religion of their colonizers, right, over time. So when we start moving forward and we're looking at Cuba fighting back, and we're looking at them trying to resist on a larger level, there was a lot that went into the leadership. And a lot of people know of someone by the name of president of longstanding Fidel Castro. And Fidel was really big on making sure that Cuban people had their independence. And this is where, along the lines, you start seeing the concept of people criminalizing Cubans because they believe a socialistic point of view. They believe that all people should have their basic needs met when it comes to their human rights. So when you think of people like Fidel Castro, when you think of people like Che Guevara, these are all people who are leaders who were very passionate. So right now, if you go there and you speak of those leaders, you're going to see, for the most part, it's still very strong in their loyalty to those principles of having and maintaining their independence. So a lot of Afro-Cubans, because they are deeply connected to their African culture, it wasn't very far removed from them. But when you start getting other people of different hues, that's when the nationality starts to be much more prevalent, because they say it doesn't matter if you're dark skinned, it doesn't matter if you're light skinned. Now, let's not get it twisted. The way colonizers operate and the way colonial affairs operate. It does create colorism wherever it touches, but very different to us, their nationality and their connection to being African. I didn't see and identify it as far removed as what some of us experience here in terms of the 400 years of enslavement here. So there's some cool pictures of people. The sister with her cigar. One thing I will say is, for people who are like, don't smoke, that's bad for you. Please understand that the smoke and the essence of smoke is very spiritual for a lot of Cuban people. So sometimes when we have this concept of what is right and what is wrong, you have to release some of those concepts, because they see smoke just like we see sage, or they see smoke as something that gets you deeply connected to ancestorhood through your spiritual connections, right? So as we move forward, I want to make it very clear, because some people, we talk about places, but because we're not educated in school about the history of our Pan-African experiences, I want to make it very clear that Cuba is not a U.S. territory. This is not like Puerto Rico and things like that. They have been about their independence. They're an independent nation, and they gained it from the United States in 1902. They fought hard for that. Following a period of the military occupation of the Spanish-American War. This took, when we're looking at the key details, the occupation from 1898 to 1902, the U.S. took control of Cuba from Spain, right? And that's when you start looking at all of the American interests. So when, you look at old school movies where they make it, show the fabulousness, really, and I'll say this because my elder said it, America made Cuba their whorehouse. That's where they went to wash dirty money. That's where they went to take advantage of beautiful bodies. That's where they went to party, party, party. So let's make it very clear that although it may look very fabulous, there was a lot of exploitation that was happening on behalf of Americans that went there to use their capitalism to dominate those people. So when you look at folks who are getting into this more radical revolutionary state, I want you to think about us and our radical revolutionary state in the 50s and in the 60s, when we started going through that awakening. They had that same crescendo of revolutionary spirit happening. It was just in a different environment and at a different time. I also want you to look really close too on how close Cuba is, because I think people forget like how close it is. Like, there are some people that don't realize it's just a couple 100 feet in terms of how close it is to America. Looking at how close it is to Haiti, looking at how close it is to Jamaica. These were all spots where colonizers settled and then began their enslavement of African people. So we are not very far removed from our Cuban brothers and sisters. All right. So in terms of, and I want you to notice that I did not include a picture of Fidel Castro, because he was very big in his leadership as a president and overthrowing capitalism, is that he did not want his image to be used and abused like a superstar celebrity. So those that truly respect Fidel's wishes, he doesn't want his image to be plastered out all over the place. So that's why I got a little sign and a little flag there that represents him. And then beneath him, you'll see a picture of Che as well. So when we're looking at the revolution and Cubans fighting to overthrow capitalism, when you look at the big war in Guantanamo Bay and the way he was very strategic, Fidel, in making sure that America could not come in and overthrow their system and overthrow their leadership, it was a very big victory. And in that victory, there had to be a total shift of infrastructure for people that believe in communism, people that believe in socialism and universal health care, universal education, and equality overall. So when you're looking at some of those revolutionary promises, okay, what does it mean to overthrow said government imposing themselves? I want you to keep this question in your head, because there's something that we can learn from Cuba in what we're going through right now. A lot of people want to chant down Babylon. A lot of people want to see structures fall apart when they're rooted in colonialism and capitalism. But the one thing that I really realized is that's only the first step, Because if you are not able to work collectively to recreate your own structure, your own infrastructure, and you are dependent on capitalists for their money, for their tourism, for their support, you are just as stuck in a lot of ways. So, a lot of the reason why there's so much reverence for Fidel and people in leadership who overthrew the government that was trying to impose power through capitalism. A lot of that is about making sure to recognize how they really did their best to rebuild the infrastructure for them to be independent people, for them to be sovereign people. So when we look at the Ngusa Saba, right, we look at Umoja, unity, Cubans had to operate that way. Because after you overthrow your colonizers, you cannot be divided, right? When you're looking at cooperative economics and the fact that they moved to a system where you have free housing. Well, and you might work a job, you might not really get paid money, but you don't have a need for money per se when you have access to housing and public health care and education. So a lot of the way that we have been trained to see socialism and communism and all these type of things have been embedded with a lot of propaganda that makes us think that system is bad. It's not necessarily bad. It's just not something that we're accustomed to. And it's really been criminalized through a lot of the movies that we see. You see Al Pacino coming from Cuba in the movie, and he's this kingpin drug lord and all these things. That was a really big propaganda machine to make Cubans look like they were part of a destructive nature, when in reality, Americans was all up in Cuba, doing horrible things way before those kind of movies came to our cinema, right? So we are looking at the 1959 revolution and how it also outlawed legal segregation. It promised equality and significantly improving access to education and healthcare for Afro-Cubans. Now, the complex reality of this is while the system was legally dismantled, there were social disparities, right? In the 1990s, there was an economic crisis where it disproportionately impacted Afro-Cubans, and they often had fewer economic resources, such as accesses to the dollar, right? So lastly, I'll say too, a part of these revolutionary promises was just the essence of cultural pride, right? Like really eradicating some of the colonial mindset that is very divisive and really allowing people to celebrate being Afro-Cuban, understanding that that is very much a root of the African identity, and Santeria or Yoruba is totally an offshoot and a remix of African spirituality. One thing that was beautiful when I was there is that even though you might see the churches and the cathedrals and things like that, when you go inside, you're going to see some black faces. Because much like in the Vatican, where the Pope knows and they've hidden all those pictures, there's a black Madonna up in there. So some things simply persevere no matter how much colonization tries to whitewash it or rid it of its history and its roots, okay? So what I want to do now is bring a little focus to some of the work that I did in this research project that I was there. So I was there specifically to study and learn about the Cuban healthcare system. So this post-revolutionary healthcare system was really about equality for all Cubans, no matter your shade, no matter your ethnic makeup, right? And that meant the organization that we went with, they brought students from all over the nation. So these people that you see here, these are all students who have different backgrounds. Some are in maternal health, some are scientists, some are educators. And the one thing that was really beautiful about Catherine Hall collecting these individuals is she knew that this may be the last time that she can take students abroad to learn, because she knows what's going on with the blockade and how the political unrest is starting to increase. So this trip was really special in the sense that I realized this was an opportunity that might not happen again for a very long time, based off of the current collapse that's happening. So those were my fellow students there. Those are some of our professors. The people that we learned under were people, heavy hitters in public health care, professors at different colleges, different healthcare workers, from social workers, maternal health workers. We were really day to day working with people that served in public health care. And one thing's for sure is they're going to have an interpreter there. And even though they're speaking Spanish, you better take notes, because at the end, when you have to have your exam and do your report, you cannot use a difference of language as a reason to not show up. Okay. Excuse me. So as we move to the next slide, these were some of the fundamental things that I learned about their constitution there in Cuba. Their constitution is rooted in an all-inclusive equity for human beings. So number one, they believe everything should be universal. They believe everything should be free. They believe everything should be accessible. They believe that people in all regions should have it, and it should be comprehensive in the sense that community members need to be educated about all of the resources they have. So this means education is free. This means public health care is free. This means access to programs is something that everybody is able to get a hold of for their human growth and for their development, especially for babies being born. So this is some of their infrastructure, right? They have 3 levels of care there: integration, assistance, and investigation. So when I would go and study under different doctors there, everybody there has access to a primary doctor, and their doctors come to your house. So they ain't no, you can't get on the bus, you can't get there. Every community has a family doctor, and that family doctor's job is to literally meet people where they are. And this was fascinating because I had the opportunity to go with doctors and visit with pregnant women, and they would do their check-in there. And it wasn't just necessarily about a physical check-in. They would go to the hospital for that, but it was also social and emotional. And this was really exciting for me because as a social wellness practitioner, I'm always interested in how public health is being integrative of mental wellness and social wellness. So it felt kind of awkward because we was like up in these little bitty homes, they wasn't the richest people in the world, but they give you whatever they have. They make sure to dust off the seat. But seeing that the doctors go on foot and they're walking through the community and waving because everybody knows who they are. Have you ever seen your doctor walking around in your community? Yes or no? No, you haven't. You haven't, right? So those primary doctors have 3 basic functions. They assist the overall population, specifically with communicable diseases and non-communicable diseases. Now, the secondary level of care is their actual physical hospitals. So once your family doctor comes and does an assessment, checks up on you, they will then refer you to the hospital in your community where you can do follow-up care. Now, the thing that's fascinating about this is there's so many people in our healthcare system who fall through the cracks simply because they can't get to the doctor's office, simply because they don't have bus fare or Uber fare, or they're sharing a car. So noticing how that alleviates barriers for community members was wonderful to see, so that by the time you make that human connection with your practitioner, with your doctor, you get the advice and then they're led to go to their hospital. And so those hospitals include, number 1, polyclinics, number 2, maternal houses, and elder care homes. So maternal houses were really cool because if you get pregnant and say you don't have the finances or not necessarily finances, but the support that you need, maybe your family is fractured, maybe you are at-risk pregnancy because you're a more mature woman, maybe you're a younger mother. If you need support, they literally have houses that you can go to and you can stay there through all terms of your pregnancy. And you have doctors and nurses and care for you throughout your pregnancy. And it's not, a halfway house. Your family, you're still allowed to go and see your family and be with your family. But especially if you're high risk and you need that assistance, they have maternal houses specifically for pregnant women. Again, this is a wonderful way to make sure that from the moment a child is born, they are getting the care and attentiveness they need. They also have elder homes, elder care homes. And if you notice in that first video, I was in there jamming with them. They were having a good time. It is not what we think of when we think of convalescent homes here, where Americans drop their parents off and maybe they come bring them some old stale fruit cake, once a year on a holiday. There, the elders are very active. They're very involved. Family comes, they take them for trips, and they're very inclusive of elders in their community. That's a big deal for me because I'm really active and I have special relationships with the elders in my house. Now, lastly,
Sister Marianna,
yes, go for it.
there's a question by Sister Naja. Did you want to ask the question, Naja, or should I yeah.
Go for it.
So she was asking, so are there no unhoused people in Cuba?
Their public health care has so many wraparound services. I'm not going to say that they're unhoused, but they have access to, the structure has set up for accesses where people can go. So we did go to mental health clinics and you don't have to pay. And a lot of the times it is inclusive of people who are unhomed. They have soup kitchens. Now, when I talk about the structure versus the reality, I want you to understand that the structure that they have is very responsive to the needs and the care of unhomed people, mental health, people impacted by mental health. The issue and the reason why they're not able to meet all the needs is because of the current blockade from America. America forbids any trade to happen. So the structure is right, but the access is not there. So to answer your question, there's definitely unhomed people there, but they have a lot more access to programs if they want to be there. The sad thing is what good is having free healthcare? What good is having free education if you don't have the resources and the medicines that you need? That comes from being able to trade and have healthy partnership with people around the globe. The thing that's so shady about it, though, is when you look at a lot of folks, they will come to Cuba to get that free education, but then they leave and go back home. So a lot of the time, Cuba has the best educational system and the best wraparound service in terms of how they look at social wellness of human beings and equality. But if you don't have access to resources, and then the people that do gain the education abandon where they received it, then Cuba is left without. Okay. So
Just
lastly,
go ahead. No, go right ahead. I was just one more comment and
sure.
one question. Minister Bill asked, commented that again, not Soviet or Chinese or Marxist, an independent invention of government of, by, and for the people.
Yep. Yep. Right. And so there are other people globally that want to work with Cuba. But America's a bully, right? So if they say, hey, you don't want us to govern you, you don't want us to rule us, we can't punk you, then we're not going to do trade with you, and we're not going to make sure that you can get access to resources, and we're going to punk everybody else that we have relationships with, so you can't get your medicines and you can't do your imports and exports with everybody else. That's really what it is. So lastly, in those three levels of care, you have the institutions. So those are the research centers, the university hospitals, and the mental health centers. I was really excited to go to the mental health centers to see how family oriented they were. It's not this stuffy clinical environment. It's kind of like your mental health care provider is also like your auntie. So when we went there, they would poke their head in, hey, y'all, what y'all doing? Now, of course, they were speaking Spanish, so our interpreter, but they don't treat them like prisoners. They don't treat them like, subjects of study. It's simply an extended community house where people that are impacted by mental health have a community and have a family there that cares for them. And that was really exciting for me because when I do a lot of work in mental health care here, it's just so dry. It's not family oriented. It's not community oriented. And that's why people tend to fall through the cracks. So I just wanted to give you an overview of the levels of care. I did visit all of those places. I studied under all of the public health officials that operate those varieties. And so every community has a doctor, has a hospital, has an institution, and then they have those offshoots of those different centers. So you don't have to ship yourself across a whole nother town. Everything is accessible, and for the most part in walking or bus distance. And they'll also provide a car to come and get you from your house if you need it. So if there are any questions.
One more question. Mama Doris asked, are there drug issues there at Cuba?
So I did ask that question. A lot I didn't see a heavy presence of that issue there because you got to import and export a lot of drugs. So I'm not saying it doesn't exist, but the levels that we know it is here in America and other places, it's not as prominent. I think people are more worried about their basic needs being met than getting high. So I can't say that drugs don't exist anywhere, right? I'm not going to go as far as that. Alcoholism is everywhere, right? So I consider, if alcoholism is an issue, that could be how people self-soothe and self-medicate. But did I hear a lot of research based on like fentanyl and things like that? I didn't hear that being a prominent issue the way I heard it here. People are trying to make sure they can eat. People are, they don't have access to, the average people are struggling to get toilet paper, right? So when you're looking at poverty on that level, access to drugs is a luxury in a lot of aspects. We're spoiled Americans in that way, right? So here I am, and this is one of the institutions. They was jamming. Let me tell you, when I walked in, they were like, okay, today we're going to go to a new facility. We're going to go to the elder care home. And when I rolled up, I was like, this is an elder care home? Because the music was bumping. They had live music going on. They was up dancing and twirling, and it was fascinating. These are the elder. This is the home. They was gigging. So it was just exciting to see. Now, this particular elder care home on the first level is where the elders have housing inside. And then there are elders that don't necessarily need housing because they live with their families, but they do come there for activities. But what was really beautiful is that on the floor above in that building was a school. So as you walk in and you see elders, you also hear the laughing and the chattering of children. So just looking at that alone, that elders and children aren't separate in this environment, just the upbeat and the warmth of children and liveliness being in the air, that contributes to the mental health and the state of being when there's liveliness and energy around. And I'm telling you, some of these little sisters, they was firecrackers. They would come up and they said, where you from? They was asking a lot of questions. It was really amazing to see how excited they were and engaged they were with all the activities that they had. They were hitting me up too. I knitted this, buy this from me. They was hustling me, they was getting me. So in terms of learning about this healthcare system and having to do a final exam and report, these were my, closing findings. What really resonated with me and really inspired me, because this is what I do here, is that community-based education programs that inform and strengthen mental and emotional health outcomes, they're really high focused on that for women and children. And that doesn't mean that men aren't included, but when a child is born and a woman has a baby in an environment where mental health and emotional health is honored and uplifted, it changes the whole paradigm and the impact on how that child feels loved and received in the community. They don't wait until the child is led astray. You're born with the access to that, right? My research, and we had to come with like really clear research questions and all of that. So in terms of the findings of my research, I found that Cuba's outstanding practice of integrating evidence-based strategies promote mental health, social wellness, and resilience for recipients of holistic healthcare programs. So, out here, holistic is something, the last 20, 30, 40 years, but like that's how they've been rolling. Like how to care for a community member has always been holistic in their approach. And the fact that these human beings had to fight so hard to create a revolution for these basic needs to be met is just crazy to me. Because in that sense, the theory of it, we're so far behind. Look at where we are now, right? And so I also had to, in my research, share how would I apply this information from learning about this 3-tier system in public health. And what I said and made the commitment to do, and I'm in the middle of making programs for it now, is to create all-inclusive programs for high-level community-based education or facilitation, which I do, but with the emphasis of youth and elders simultaneously. That really stood out to me, because out here we got a lot of programs. It's just for the youth. It's just for the elders. But really, if you put an 80-year-old in the same room with a 4-year-old, they doing the same arts and crafts. You know what I'm saying? There's an excitement and a connectivity. So I really want to make sure to commit a lot of my community-based facilitation to bringing elders and youth together. that energy of the youth and the wisdom of the elders in community-based activities so that there's less separation, so that we're preserving the wisdom, the knowledge, and our heritage, but also getting invigorated by the energy and the dynamic energy that young people have to offer. Are there any questions about the things that I learned about the public health care system in Cuba? Go
I
ahead,
do. I
Marianna.
have a question.
Mm-hmm.
You want us to just jump out there?
Jump out there. You already
Any-
in it now. Come on.
Okay. Yeah. So, Mariana, what's your goal? Are you a doctor or I missed all of that, so I'm sorry.
So
But
I'm a
what is your goal to bring that here, to bring their
so
system here?
no, my goal is not to bring their system here. My goal was to learn about their public health care practices and make them integrative in what I offer to community member in education and facilitation. I've had this question asked for me, and a lot of people were like, "How you gonna change the system?" I didn't sign up to change the system. I'm not one of those kind of
Right.
revolutionaries. I'm here to apply everything that I've learned directly to what I already do. And so, to answer your question, I don't aspire to be a doctor. She was really instrumental in making sure that we brought people from all different backgrounds. Because when we look at public health care, the way Cuba looks at public health care, a hairstylist is a public health care professional. My work in mental health didn't start when I got a certificate to be a mental health first aider. My work started being behind the chair for 25, 30 years and counseling with people while I twisted their locks. So, a lot of what Cuba does is that America doesn't do is they see the quantifiable value of community membership as what is a part of having a healthy community. When I was out there as a researcher, we had to wear lab coats because they see public health servants and public health providers the way we see doctors. So out here, right, if you have a white coat on, there's a reverence, there's a respect. If you're any form of a public health provider out there, they give you a level of reverence and respect, and the hierarchy of education or having a particular degree doesn't make you any better or worse. And so I think, or more valuable, not better or worse. So I think one of the things that I had to immediately adjust is the hierarchy of education and the hierarchy of access. When you're looking through the eyes of socialism and communism, it's we are all valuable. We all have a role, whether you become a doctor or become a maternal health professional, whether you become a mental health provider, whether you run the soup kitchen for the unhomed community members, we're all valuable and they're all needed to make the community thrive. So for me, I think the main thing that I'm bringing back is the reiteration that everything that I learned in Wose is a beautiful system. And a lot of what I saw in Cuba is what I've learned in Wose as a child. Yeah.
We have another question from Baba Jerry.
Okay.
Yeah, thanks for the presentation. My question is related to the topic of shortages.
Of what?
Shortages? Were you able to discover medical areas where there was a shortage of professional nurses, doctors, healthcare workers? What were the greatest needs that were not being met?
So, like I mentioned before, a lot of people will come and utilize the education that they can get from Cuba because it's free from all over the world, because they have some of the most profound approaches with this holistic approach. I think the shortages was specifically people come, get the education, and they don't return back to Cuba in order to contribute to the community in which they learned. Number two, shortages specifically based off the blockade were some of the basic things that we take for granted that you can see in the dollar store. So toilet paper, right? Making sure that you have access to medicines. So we did bring medicines. We did bring things for like the baby showers that we did there. We did a lot of humanitarian work. And, you know, I took a couple of caftans and rolled them up because I wanted to make sure that I can bring supplies. So the shortages are also gasoline. Without trade, how do you get gas there? So one thing that was really uncomfortable is that you always have to take toilet paper with you everywhere you go, right? Hand sanitizer, soap. That's something that we take for granted that they don't have on a regular in every environment. So any given a restaurant might not have toilet paper. You got to bring that with you. They might not have soap or hand sanitizer. You got to bring that with you. Of course, I know as somebody who's traveled a lot, you always drink bottled water because our little enzymes and oogies and boogies in our belly isn't as strong to deal with some of the things that might be in the water that people can drink out there. So In terms of shortages, medication, gasoline, it was really uncomfortable because they don't have a lot of gas there, and I think that that's been completely shut off in the last month. But the only access they did have was in Havana was diesel. So every day I always had a headache because we're not used to smelling diesel exhaust all the time. So I constantly had a headache because of the lack of gasoline that they can get access to, and the only gas that they can get is diesel. So the air just is permeated constantly, unless you're like by the water in the ocean. You're just always whiffing in this diesel gasoline, and that's not healthy for the body. One other thing that I wouldn't necessarily classify as a shortage, but an apparent disadvantage is garbage being a lot of places, because for a garbage truck to run, you got to have gasoline. And so if they don't have gas, what happens is that you have garbage piles, much like we see in the hood, that doesn't get picked up. And I was really scared because I found out when I was out there, the mosquitoes were carrying around this particular sickness, that it was because the garbage wasn't being picked up, right? So the garbage juice, that vector in the water, is poisonous. So when mosquitoes go and get into that vector in the water, I can't remember the name of the disease, but a lot of people were getting really, really sick. And so I had to stay like doused down in lavender and off. Like I just, my senses were messed up a lot because between the diesel in the air, the off chemical that I had to spray, I tried to do my little lavender and my sage, but I got bit probably 6 times. And every time I got bit, I got nervous because if you got an infected mosquito, it would give you muscle tension. It would make your body swell up. And so you might see somebody that's 14, 15 years old and they walking around like they 90, 100 years old, because you could tell they probably are dealing with the side effects of being bit by one of those infected mosquitoes. So I was very nervous about that, especially because they said the symptoms sometimes don't show up till almost 2 weeks later. So in terms of shortages of things, it is some of just the basic things that they would be able to have access to regularly that we take for granted all the time. Yeah.
You have space for one more question before we move
Sure.
on? Sister Sheila.
Hey, Mama.
Thank you. Hey, sweetie.
What you got?
Yeah, I don't have a question. I just have a comment. I'm just overjoyed to hear you talk about the power of the generational connection. I wrote my master's thesis on that 100 years ago, but it's so, for us, community is medicine.
Mm-hmm.
And, when we start moving away from each other, it was a real breakdown. It was a real breakdown in our community. Community is medicine for us.
Mm-hmm.
And those intergenerational connections are so critically important.
Yeah.
So I'm just thrilled that was a takeaway. I know you're going to recreate something here. I know, the purpose wasn't for you to come here and build something, but I know you're going to recreate something with that knowledge. And I'm just, any way that I can support you, please don't hesitate to ask me.
All right.
Yeah.
Thank you for that. I appreciate it. And it wasn't no 100 years ago. Don't be playing yourself like that. So it was when I study abroad and I'm able to come from the African American experience. You know how we in our own environment, we understand the complexities of what our struggle is. But when I start traveling abroad more and more and doing these different projects all over the world, I'm able to see how colonization and poverty impacts people. And it always comes down to their basic needs being met. And so as beautiful as the culture was, the spirituality, the strength and the resilience of people who want to believe in the infrastructure that the revolution provided, it was still extremely heartbreaking, because what good is a structure without the access, right? So for us, how does that apply to me? I look at the word, I don't take saying I'm a revolutionary lightly anymore. Because when we're here and we can go up the street, and even on our poorest day, we can go to the dollar store with $15 and come out with food, soap, whatever. Like, we say the word revolutionary because it's hip and it's cool, but we really don't know what it's like in this American space to fight of actual physical revolution, but then also stand on business and have to depend on each other. And so to circle back to that original question is, when we're talking about chanting down Babylon and we're all excited about, oh, the system is finally falling, good, it needs to fall apart. I just say, save a little of that gasoline for the hoorahing of being a revolutionary of capitalism falling. Make sure to siphon some of that gas over to what are we doing? Because one of my OGs will always say, who's your daddy? If you're mad at the government and you're mad at the system and you chant that system down and it falls apart and you're completely dependent on it, then you're just as screwed up as when you were in colonization and capitalism. And it is community and culture that is the very thing that keeps them from not falling apart. The thing that was really sad is to see how brilliant the structure of the system is. But when we went to the hospitals, it's like they only got 2, 3, 4 beds. You know, you got free access, but do you have the medicine? So it was very heartbreaking to see how spoiled we are, because we fuss about our healthcare system, of course, because it's not universal and it's not free. But we got 15 million medicines. We can go to Walgreens right now. They would be happy if we just gave them ibuprofen. That's how serious the need was. So we have a terrible infrastructure in our system, but we got all these different accesses, the thing we take for granted. They got a powerful system that's all inclusive, but they don't have the access. And that was one of the biggest things that I walked away with, is like, man, what are we going to do if we now really have the government pull out, right? When you can't run to Walgreens and get that, and you can't go, what are you growing in your backyard? And if you don't have a backyard, what are you growing on your little balcony patio? Right? What medicines and herbs are you studying if you don't have access to anything at all? These are real questions that started rolling around in my head. All right. What time are we supposed to be done? Is it time to go? Okay. All right. We good. All right. So that's them jamming. I had a good time. Look at them good knees. Look at them good knees. Woo! All right. So this was a cathedral that I went to. What do you see?
Madonna and Child.
Everywhere, right? So even though she's not dressed up in African attire, that the long-standing presence of Africanness is all over the place. It's just blended and twisted. And so I remember I had a sister friend before, and she was like, you know, Santeria and Yoruba over there downtown, it's just a knockoff. Everything is a remix. We do as much as we can to hold on to whatever scraps we have left. And yes, sometimes we have to morph it and we have to twist it in a way that the colonizer can't recognize it. But this is for sure recognizable. This isn't, I didn't have to go to the Vatican on the 50th floor down low. This was right smack there in the middle, right? So it was just really, that was powerful for me to see. As a child of Wolsey, I was like, I know what's going on here. That was pretty cool to see. So another thing that I had the opportunity to do was every year I do an event called Put Your Money Where Your Mouth Is. I've been doing that for about 11 years, and it's community led. I am not a nonprofit, so everything that I do is based off of donations. A lot of the work that I do is based off of community support, and aunties and grandmas and papas slide me a little money and saying, baby, I believe in you, do what you need to do. So Put Your Money Where Your Mouth Is started in Sacramento, California on my birthday about 11 years ago. And my homegirls were like, hey, what you want to do for your birthday? Let's turn up. And I was like, no, let's make peanut butter and jelly sandwiches and give them out to unhomed community members. And it was funny because they was like, are you serious? And we did it, and they had an amazing time. So over the years, this turned into an event where droves of people come, and we put meal packages. And then after a while, people got spooked because the government said you can't give out food. So we started making hygiene packages. So as my studies abroad started extending, I realized that if I'm going to go to a certain country and learn, I want to make sure to bring Put Your Money Where Your Mouth Is with me. So this experience that you're seeing here is all of these women are hairstylists. They're natural care hairstylists who do not have access to all the goops and the butters and the jams and the edge controls, right? They ain't got that. There's no import and export. They might be able to work with a little cocoa butter, you know, and they try to mix it and flip it the way they can, but they have very little access. And so I had the opportunity through doing my research of looking at them and getting them to realize that as a natural hair provider, you are also a public health service provider. For African people, hair, the adorning of hair, the health of hair, the safety of hair, that is very much a very prominent and revered role in the community. Don't you love your hairstylist? I love my hairstylist, right? So when I was able to facilitate a workshop, I did a full day event for them. And with my donations and the donations of other community members, I was able to take 25 hairstylists, a full packet. In that packet, they had combs, they had clips, they had shea butter, they had oil, they had spray bottles, they had aprons, they had drapes, they had little coils to do curls in the hair. And I did a full day facilitation teaching them how to use their tools, teaching them how to use their products to do different natural hair care styles. So if you notice out here, there's a lot of sisters with curly natural hair. They wear their hair natural out there. That's not something that they really fighting with. You don't see a lot of women with straightened hair. But things like locks and twists and styles, they're very interested in that. So I was lightweight on my Madam CJ Walker when they saw me bust out all those products and tools that they could literally take and go back into their communities and use to make money for themselves and their families, right? Because yes, they don't get paid because they have free housing, but they're still able to have side hustles on the side so that they can provide for themselves as well. So this is me. I'm actually talking to them about African waist beads. This is me teaching them different hair techniques. Look at that brother in the back with those long locks. Right here, I'm teaching them how to take care of their bodies. One thing about hairstylists is a lot of times our fingers and our hands and our backs really get locked up. A lot of the times they're not breathing properly, so we're just doing breathing practices. Fill your belly to its maximum capacity until it shakes. Inhale, inspire, hold it. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Now exhale. 1, 2, 3. Again. Inhale. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Hold it. 1. It was so funny. That brother was on my helmet. You see him? He was the tech. He was doing my slides for my presentation. When I did my presentation, guess what? I was able to go into the Baba Imhotep files because he keeps pictures and he has done a whole study on the evolution of African hair. So I was there representing Wose and the special files of Baba Imhotep because my presentation was filled with all of the photos that he kept to show the tradition of African hairstyles globally. It was really powerful. 3, 4, 5, They were so attentive. They were so grateful. That was right after they got their care packs with all the products, so they was very happy. So they were very grateful. One teased me and said, "You're our Madam CJ Walker." So that was the second half of what my trip was about, was there to go and facilitate through the research and the awareness of the presence of natural hair care providers being seen as public health providers. So that's generally the close. In closing with this last slide here, I think it's very important to make sure that when you want to support adults of my age who are culture bearers, to understand when we have opportunities and we're active in community to contribute to that. Because if I didn't have all of those donations and people that helped me, I wouldn't have been able to go on and provided all of those supplies for those women. They may never get their hands and access on that, but the gratitude they have, it really made me emotional. Because most of us have 17 products in our cabinet right now that we used once. And I really, the more I travel abroad, I realize how important it is to not be wasteful, how important it is to not take things for granted. Because much as we don't like the American system, we do have access to so many things that people would bend their back over for. I mean, I left a lot of my clothes there, right? There's just so many things that people are in need of based off of that blockade. And so I'm glad that I had the opportunity to go, because sure enough, as soon as I left, the friction and the bullying of America has increased. You see what's going on in Venezuela. Um, Basically, our current administrator is rogue and really trying to break down these places, which at the end of the day are ethnic places with African blooded people. And so as of February, it got so bad, and I'm very emotional thinking about all the lovely people that cared for me, that I met, that I learned and studied with while I'm there, because right now a lot of them are in the most extreme crisis. They were already in poverty, but right now Cuba is navigating a severe multi-dimensional crisis, and they're basically under a total collapse. The energy grid is down, so they don't have electricity for majority of them. The shortages that I talked about when I was there are tenfold now, just in these last couple of years, the last couple of months since I was there in November. And it's just, the heightened tension between the United States, because they are sovereign. And so just think about that. If they'll do that to a whole country, with people of African descent, what can they do to us? And so that's what I mean by we need to learn from Cuba and understand that revolution is beautiful. Overthrowing powers that be is amazing. But if you don't have access and things in place, it's going to be just as difficult, if not more. So in terms of the current crisis as they're having there, the island is facing its worst socioeconomic catastrophe since the revolution, when they, fought and overthrew the government. There's an energy collapse, which the blackout. When I was there were blackouts that would happen, and I would be in the middle of like studying or doing research, and then it just be pitch black outside. You just gotta wait. I was doing my hair one night. I was in the bathroom doing my hair, and the lights went out, and I couldn't finish my hair because I couldn't see. Right. So now that's not just 1 hour a day now. That is happening for them consistently, up to 12 to 20 hours a day. So think about that. If you're a hospital and you don't have electricity for up to 20 hours a day. The grid is in tatters because of the infrastructure falling apart. So you might have a free house and you might not have to pay mortgage or rent, but the ceiling might be crumbling because Cuba has a blockade on it that says you can't barter in exchange to get the goods that you would need to rebuild those homes. So say you have a grandparent, right, who left a home to you. Yeah, you're not paying mortgage, but the ceiling is literally collapsing on a lot of people's head because there's no Home Depot you can run to. There's no place where they can get some of those tools and supplies that they need. The shortages in healthcare have now increased, and there's a lot of scarcity with food, and even water to even boil to drink, and of course medicine. In the last 3 months, 4 months since I've been there, it has tripled and doubled. It's been an exponential downfall for them. And then in terms of migration, right, a lot of people are leaving. So they're trying to flee, which leaves a lot of fractions in that community, in those roles, because they're just trying to get out of there. But a lot of people are left behind that maybe don't have family members that maybe live in Florida that can send for them or something like that. And then lastly, our government, as we all know, our current administrator is just trying to bring up that propaganda of making everybody look like criminals, right? Making everybody who's an immigrant look like they're bad. So he's laying that on Venezuela, and now and we knew it. As soon as he started going after Venezuela and their oil, we knew Cuba was next. And that's exactly what's happening. And then just our current administrator really trying to, implement this pressure on them to succumb to, smoke them out, make them fall apart to where they're at mercy. And, just watching that and realizing that I got out of there in a nick of time. Because just imagine if I was there when things got shut down and I couldn't get back on a plane to get back here. I'd be on WhatsApp blowing y'all up trying to figure out what I'm going to do. So just in terms of like the timeliness of me taking this opportunity, I'm really grateful for it. So, this, is my reflection on my experience, the program that I went with, the beautiful thing. And I don't want to leave us on a morbid tip, but this is just the reality of what's going on. And it's gotten worse since I was there in November. So if we were to take some of, maybe the pain of witnessing our community members in Cuba suffering, even though we can't go and fix it for them directly because we can't fly there. I was only there on a research license, so I wasn't there because you can't go, there's no tourism, you can't just send money, you can't send things in the mail. None of that can be done. So what I would say is to watch and learn how America will go about dismantling any form of sovereignty, and take that and not overlook what our Cuban brothers and sisters are going through, not take for granted what lessons we can learn, and really bring that back and apply our Nguza Saba, because we are not far from it. And we are very spoiled as people who live in America. Even though we grumble about the conditions, we have access and a lot of means in ways that the average revolutionary that preaches revolutionary out there, I was out there for 2 weeks and I was tore up when I got back because of the air that I was breathing, because of, just the discomfort. And we don't think about that. And so that's what I invite you to do with this information, is remind yourself of returning to Wose with your gifts, returning to Wose with your ability to barter your skill sets, and beginning to do that now, not waiting until the collapse comes, but normalizing the barter, the trade, the community effectiveness, the being dependent on each other, so that when and if this does collapse in our lifetime, we're not scrambling trying to figure it out. We are already in the practice of our collective work, of our responsibility, of our cooperative economics, our brothers and sisters being problems ours to solve together, using our creativity and being faithful that we have things in place, which is why I'm so big on safety awareness, crisis prevention, survivalist lifestyle, and learning how to live with each other and live with nature. So that is my overall presentation. Is there any questions or feedback? I know I'm long-winded, but it was a lot. I had to share as much as I can.
I wouldn't consider that long-winded. I can listen for another 2 hours.
All right, now hold on. You're gonna have to pay me that. That's a master lesson.
It will be worth it. Let me, Brother Damani, did you want to ask your question, or are you driving? Let's see.
He might be gone now.
Yes, I'm sitting in my truck at work. I'm on lunch break. Hey, sister, Miss Marianna, surrounding countries like Chile, Colombia, they're not able to get supplies in and break the American blockade.
Mm-mm. Mm-mm. When America forgives people, because what happens is America will forbid you from doing trade, and then they'll pull out from doing trade with you. So it would be like, that's my enemy now. If any of you that I do trade with, if any of you do business with them, then we gonna cut you off. So very few people, like there's, certain religious groups that might come and bring things in, right? Or like myself, those who are research humanitarians, we come in on that tip, but there's no help. No one is helping Cuba, and nobody is able to help Cuba.
How about Russia, China? They don't do anything.
Not on a mass level that's doing anything for them. China,
Right,
I think,
okay.
when we went to some biotech centers, remember, people, a lot of the time when we're looking at the powers that be in different empires, they're only doing stuff if they can get out of it. So if they can't get out of it, or the loss between their American ties will be greater, and they might sprinkle something here and there. They might send some of their Chinese doctors to come learn things, but it's only if it's incentivized. And so America has such a chokehold on so many people that if they don't see a benefit in it, then, like I said, there might be some humanitarian organizations that can slide through based off a research license to come and bring things, but they'll shake you down too. They'll shake you down too and take everything from you.
Okay, all right, thank you.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah.
Thank you, brother.
Questions?
Mama Zarita, did you have a question? I saw you come off mute.
Yeah, I did. I just want to say Asante Sana Mama, an outstanding presentation that really makes understanding community cohesiveness a life for us.
Mama Zarita, you're kind of going in and out.
I'm sorry. I'm trying not to get emotional.
Go ahead.
I can just visualize what she's saying and the cruelty of of what is going on and the beauty of the people. And the lesson for us, don't wait till the last minute. We better take seriously. I still have my grandmother's quilting. You better take seriously how they never had to uh, have no waste because they didn't have it. They recycled. And a real lesson for us, I think sometimes, and we are going, I include you had you had so much store and it's just rolls. And she took love packages so that they could do hair and the appreciation that they had. And it's just a powerful lesson, Mama Mariana. I give thanks.
I
Ashe.
appreciate you. I appreciate you. I will say when I mentioned the whole, not to disrespect anybody who feels that they're a revolutionary, because wherever we are and wherever we're fighting colonialism, capitalism, poverty, you're a revolutionary in your own right. But we are very spoiled revolutionaries here. And so even when I went to Ghana last, I did put your money where your mouth is in Ghana the year before that. And I went to a lot of schools where, students were excited to just have some basic things, bring hygiene, packages for the women who are teachers there. I'm realizing, and I guess maybe this answers a little bit more of the question that Sister had before is like, what's your goal? And my goal is to have as many learning experiences abroad to study how humanity is responding to crisis so that as I come back to my community, I understand the beauty of their structure, but I also understand the underlying commonality of what poverty and capitalism does. And so, I cry every time I leave places when I see poverty anywhere, right? But I also know that the richness that is exchanged. For example, I had a beautiful reading there by not one, but two Babalaos at the same time. So I did get some spiritual medicine and some affirmation there. And they knew right away when they started their reading. They were like, "Oh, you." They kept calling me the warrior queen. They was like, "What's that movie with the warrior queen? You do that, huh? That's you." They were very. They could see me, and they knew my heart. But every time I leave, it makes you. I'm happy to get the fullness of the culture and what I've learned, but I'm also sad because it's like brown people, black people everywhere. We're dealing with this struggle, just in different extremes, and my goal is to be a humanitarian through education and facilitation just as much as dollars. Now, don't get me wrong, you can also always donate to my educational excursions and experiences. I'll be going to Egypt in July with Baba Tony Browder, who is going to be on his last two trips of the last 20 years of him going back and forth and taking students and scholars. And so that is a big part of my rites of passage and initiation into leadership in Wose. I was supposed to go with Baba Imhotep, and I still will be spiritually. But I'm open to any support that you may have. Some of you give me books, some of you give me donations, but all of that empowers me to be able to be your eyes and your ears with these young knees, kind of young knees, and to be able to go abroad and see how African people are living and learning and existing and being able to bring everything I learned back to you. So I'm honored to be a representative of Wose Community Church into the world. Ashe.
Mama Doris.
Yeah, one of the things as a comment in the chat about China, Russia, etc. And when we talk about how the energy and not having access, and once again, it's uh, Russia and China are just about themselves. They don't really care about, it's not about communism or socialism or whatever, because I know someone who's been traveling back and forth for over 30 years to doing solar power development in Eritrea. He was doing that in the 80s, and now he's in Malawi. And that's how Rob went with him to Tanzania. So he then does a stop in China first to get, supplies and things. And then he goes on over to Malawi. Well, China's going directly to the continent to see what they can rape and pillage of them. So Cuba doesn't have what they want right now.
Mhm.
And so when we talk about getting ready or staying ready, making sure we have our safety kits in place, making sure we put a little garden out there and start sharing. And that kind of thought is important as we take the gifts and the blessings that we have in this environment where, as we might, when this friend who goes over to Malawi, when he comes back, his significant other says to him, wait a minute, he sent him to the store and he got single ply toilet paper, but he had been in Malawi for a month. So he was just happy for, she's like, no, we do Charmin. So we have to understand just those basic things and to work together as they are there, whether it's alternative and complementary medicines that they're doing and herbs, but to even take the gifts that we have here and build upon them, you
Yeah,
know.
there it
But
is.
I could hear Gil Scott Heron. The revolution will not be televised. It might be streamed, but it's not going to be televised.
Even if they stream it, they gonna mess with you and make it look crazy because you can't believe your eyes with AI anyway.
Yeah, and
So yeah,
yeah.
yeah. But I'll say this in closing with the last few minutes. Don't take things for granted. Don't take things for granted. When you eat a piece of fruit, save the seeds, y'all. If you're not gonna put a garden together, save the seeds and give them to me, because I got a little piece of land right now that I'm about to blow up. Put your safety bags together. I've been teaching about safety bags for almost 15, 20 years, which is basic. And most of my friends, I can't even count on 10 fingers how many of my friends actually build one. Get your evacuation plans together. If you live on this side of town and your wife or your husband or whatever, know what their patterns are. Know the streets that they take. Not to be fear mongering, but in the event that things shut down, if the internet wasn't on, right? Let's assume that we really got to live like we're camping. And so if you're camping, that's a good mindset and way to shift on. If I was to go camping, right, instead of making it all scary and spooky, I don't know how to be a survivalist. If you were to go camping, the mindset you have is whatever you prepare and bring, right, whether it's for your creature comforts or your necessities, that's all you got. So that's a very good mind shift to have, is get yourself a bag, pack it as if you were going camping with no electricity. Put one in your trunk, put one in the cabinet in your house, right? And one of the best compliments that I ever got from one of my friends, she says, one thing I know, if I'm hanging out with you, Miss Mariana, I know I'm going to be safe. Because not only do I have a safety bag in my trunk, I have enough in there for at least 2 to 3 people if I was in an emergency in my car, right? So a big part of what I want to inspire you to do is to not take of things for granted. Start to shift into a safety awareness and crisis prevention mentality. Start to shift into a sustainability mentality, which is the mentality of our ancestors. Our ancestors knew how to grow their own food. They knew how to recycle. Stop throwing them plastic bottles away. Fill them up with some water. Get some tap water and tuck it away. Because in the event that the water is shut up, Detroit didn't have water for how long? That water was coming out black. So we are not above it, and we should not take for granted the access that we have with the current conditions and not start to have a preparation mindset so that we can start preparing. I do want to start having some events where we can come together and learning about within our WOSE community what roles we might have in the event that there is a kind of a collapse or a shutdown. Again, in closing, I'll say this: when I do my safety presentations, whether it's for elementary schools, whether it's for utility companies, it's not the smartest person, it's not the finest person, it's not the most educated or popular person. The person that is going to more than likely survive crisis and collapse is simply the prepared person. So I ask that you begin to shift into a preparation lifestyle, and I'm more than happy to create workshops and facilitations to help us design what that will look like for the WOSE community and abroad. Ashe.
Okay. And just a couple comments before we end out of the chat. Sister Naja said, Ashe, we truly need each other, young, old, and in between. And Sister Sheila says, thank you for this wonderful presentation, Minister Marianna. I appreciate your heart, your passion, your commitment, and your message. Love you. And I think the rest of us can also join in that beautiful message from Sister Sheila. We feel this way. I would love for everyone at this point to come off mute. Oh, I'm sorry. 1 second. Brother Sebastian, I have one thing before we go. Brother Sebastian, I see you there.
Thank you, my sister Marianna. Great. If I can encourage everybody, when this comes out, this is being recorded. Am I correct, Mama Doris? When this come out, we need to share this with other people. This information she shares, we need to share it with other people. Okay, that way we can spread the knowledge that she just shared with us and have a better understanding. You see, because a lot of times people only know what they know. You know, and she goes there and now she's in the know, so she can bring that information back of, you know, how they're having to do things and the information about blockades and preparedness and all. So we need to be able to share that so that we can get other people to understand what it is we need to prepare for. The Nguza Saba is needed now.
Right now. Not
Right
now.
now. Right now. Thank you,
So
girl.
like I mentioned, I'm going to my next trip for studying abroad is going to be in Egypt in July. I'm open to all your supports and contributions to help me to do that. And I'm looking forward to making sure to report back on what I learn and what I receive and how I can transmute that and to apply that in my work and my service here once I get back from the Holy Land. Ashe.
Okay. Mama Doris, did you have one thing? All right. So this was powerful and learning on so many different levels. I would ask everyone to come off mute and to give recognition, your verbal recognition to Minister Marianna.
Thank you, thank you, thank you.
Thank you, thank you, thank you.
Asante
I
Sana.
see you.
Thank
I hear you. I
you.
value you.
Yes.
Beautiful.
Powerful.
I love you.
Thanks
Thank you.
for the love. Yes, thanks for the love. You know, we can feel your spirit. This is funny, but I can feel your spirit through the screen. And I just want to say to all of you, yeah, and I mean that sincerely, you guys. If you remember, I only say what I mean, what's true for me. I have not been in a Wose spirit in this presence since I left Wose. Well, that's not true because I've attended some other stuff. But normally I'm the person who's doing the Wose behind the scenes, trying to educate. In Oklahoma, you guys, this is a cultural desert, a cultural desert. So I thank you. I thank you for allowing me to share this space with you. Truly. Hey, Brother Ed.
And before we end, please, Minister Marianna put her Cash App, hashtag
I took that out. I took that out. The appropriate Cash App would be the wosesac.org.
Got it.
Yeah.
Got it. Well, you can donate wosesac.org, Cash App to Imhotep, email and phone number.
Right.
Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Minister Marianna.
Take care. Bless us.
Guidance and protection to everybody. May the Most High God continue to lift you and carry you in all that you do. Peace and blessings.
Peace and blessings.
Asheo.